so far?
All right, I guess we can get into it.
You can start speaking because this is going to be stream live. There you go.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Anna Chauhan. I'm 16 years old and I'm currently going to high school in Brampton, Ontario. It's a pleasure to meet you all here today, and I hope you've been learning a lot and having a lot of fun throughout this week with the GoSTEM program. And I can't wait to get to know all of you throughout the webinar. So here are some things about me that you might want to know. I'm a feminist, so I'm super passionate about women. I also love STEM, especially the sciences. And although I'm not 100% sure of what I want to do in the future, I think it'll definitely be a career in the field of the sciences. So this webinar is pretty useful for me as well. I'm also super passionate about education and fitness. I love volunteering with teachers and kids in the classroom setting. And I also love working out. So I love running and kickboxing. They make me feel really strong. And lastly, I'm a VOLUTION ambassador, and I chose to be one because it was an intersection of the three things that I care most about, which is women, STEM, and education.
So, hey everyone, my name is Novera Ahmed. I'll be going into my first year of engineering at the University of Toronto this September, so that's exciting. I've already met a few of you on Monday and Tuesday in terms of the GoSTEM program, so it's awesome to see you guys back here again, and I hope you guys are having a great week so far with the awesome events planned throughout the GoSTEM program. And today we have a ton of amazing things planned for you guys, so we hope you guys enjoy it. Just a bit about me. I absolutely love physics and mathematics. I don't know if you can see there's a space poster in the back, so I'm a bit of a nerd on that. Another thing is that I've been doing martial arts for quite some time, and the reason why I mentioned that is because my sensei loves bringing up physics and the applications of physics in sports, which is something else that interests me. And as you all may know, being a VOLUTION ambassador is important to me because getting women involved in STEM careers is incredibly important for future generations. And I want to help be part of that and foster that development along with all the other amazing women here at VOLUTION. So we're going to get into the agenda for the webinar. So here's a quick summary of our agenda for today, and we'll be spending the first half exploring various careers in the fields of STEM. We have 4 extraordinary guests with us today who will be acting as part of the panelists for each of the disciplines. After getting through the first half, we'll take a small break and dive right into the games and activities we have planned for you guys. We'd love for our guests to stay as well, but feel free to leave after the first half. So let's get the show on the road with Anna introducing you all to the careers in the fields of science.
So the sciences are arguably one of the most diverse fields in the field of STEM, particularly because there are so many different types of sciences, but also because the number of job opportunities and career pathways are essentially endless. So there are 3 main types of science career pathways that you can take: biology, chemistry, and physics. However, even though physics is considered a science, we have chosen to include that discipline in our mathematics section because physics does involve a great deal of math in it, but it could also fit perfectly in the engineering field or even tech, because that's like the beauty of STEM. The fields are they're more intertwined and connected with each other than they're different. And this is just something to keep in mind during today's webinar. You know, we'll be discussing many different types of career options and pathways, but many of them won't fit into one fixed field in STEM, even if we have chosen to include it in a certain one for organizational purposes. If you could just change the slide. Yeah, perfect. So biology, what is biology? So biology is essentially the study of living organisms. So students engage in laboratory work and practical field experience, then conduct research, and then they have the opportunity to share their research with their faculties, peers, and community as they become senior honor students. Graduates with biology degrees are eligible to pursue any career in biological and related fields, such as health sciences, the applied sciences, medicine, and/or graduate studies. So some career pathways in the biological and related fields above include being a biologist. So there's actually 7 different types of biologists. So some of them are forensic biologists, microbiologists, marine biologists, and many others. But a general job description of what biologists do is they essentially just research, catalog, observe, or dissect the different processes and behaviors of specific animals or organisms to understand and use them for the betterment of society. Someone with a biology degree could even be a conservationologist, which is a super green career, and it's great for anyone who has a passion for the environment and ensuring that it is preserved. Conservationists manage natural habitats, including parks, forests, and rangelands. Conservationists are usually employed by either private landowners or federal, state, or local governments, and they make sure that landowners follow government regulations and take appropriate measures to protect habitats. They advise farmers and ranchers to help them improve their land and control erosion. You could also become a doctor or a physician. I don't really have to explain this one much as it's a well-known career, but essentially doctors are experts in preventing, diagnosing, and treating diseases, psychological and psychiatric disorders, as well as injuries. They examine patients and give advice and treatment options catered toward the better management of a patient's health. You could also become a dentist. This one is also pretty self-explanatory as well. Dentists are essentially just teeth doctors, so they help manage your oral hygiene and health, and they also know how the health of your teeth, gums, and mouth relate to your general health. You could become an electron microscope specialist. So this one is pretty unconventional. This job involves creating high-resolution images of specimens, both biological and non-biological. Electron microscopy technicians use an electron microscope in a laboratory to make these images, which are then used for research or medical diagnosis purposes. You could become an environmental scientist, which is a professional who works to protect the environment through their knowledge in the natural sciences, specifically regarding health sciences. You could become an environmental educator. You could become a health policy consultant, which are people who essentially perform research, make reports, and manage healthcare policies and programs. You could work for the government in educational institutes, research labs, hospitals, and different types of community agencies as well. You could also become a laboratory technician, a nurse, an oceanographer, which are scientists that apply biological, chemical, physical, and geological principles to study the world's oceans. You could become an optometrist, which is essentially an eye doctor. You could become a pharmaceutical researcher, a pharmacologist, who are people who conduct experiments and analyze to better understand the effects of pharmaceutical substances and drugs on the human body or animal organisms. You could become a pest control consultant, a teacher, a veterinarian, which is an animal doctor that specializes in animal and pet healthcare, or a water quality inspector, and many, many more. The list goes on and on. So we will share the slideshow with you. And in the slide notes, like when you go on the slideshow, you can actually click a link in the speaker notes where you can find even more biology careers, but those are just a few of them.
So I'll be going into chemistry, which is also the study of matter. A chemistry degree trains students in theoretical and practical parts of this discipline by having students engage in instructional and laboratory coursework in the natural science and mathematics. With branches of study like environmental science and chemical engineering, a chemistry degree offers many opportunities to study and work in a variety of interesting fields, some of which include the following. So we have agriculture chemists, which are scientific experts that aim to produce food with nutritional value and feed that can support the population in a sustainable way, keeping in mind the surrounding environment and ecosystem. We have an analytical chemist, a biochemist, a biotechnologist, which is not as common as a biochemist, but this career involves studying and examining the genetic, chemical, physical, and structural component of cells and tissues and organisms, and they often genetically modify organisms to make new products on small and big scales. They also examine any social and ethical concerns raised by the communities in which such technology enhanced products are used. You could become a chemical engineer, a chemical instructor, a cosmetic chemist, and they help develop and test new skincare products, fragrances, and dyes, such as chemists. They're responsible for the creation of a wide variety of beauty and self-care products, including shampoos, conditioners, lotions, body wash, gel, sunscreen, lip balm, and lipstick, toothpaste, deodorant, hair dye, and many more as well. We also have an environmental chemist, a food chemist, and they help perform research in order to develop and improve different food and beverages. They perform tests using a number of methods that include merging natural as well as synthetic food materials. They also have to analyze the sensory effects of food. forensic chemist, which they're professional chemists who analyze evidence that is brought from crime scenes and come up with conclusions based on tests run on that piece of evidence, and they must identify and characterize the evidence as part of a larger process of solving a crime, which is kind of like being a detective, so that's pretty cool. We also have a geochemist, an industrial hygienist, which they help carry out surveys and investigations of workplaces to determine the hazardous health conditions. They interpret data, evaluate results, and issue orders when necessary to control or eliminate hazards and follow up to ensure compliance. A laboratory manager, a laboratory technician, and this job involves receiving, processing, and analyzing samples sent to a lab, depending on the work setting, such as samples may be like blood and tissue samples in a healthcare lab, air, water, soil, and rock in an environment, public health or a mining lab, chemical products in a lab that works in the chemical and pharmaceutical industry, and many more. A medical doctor, a medicinal chemist, a molecular biologist who examine plants, animals, or human genetics and study the variation and relationships between them. Molecular biologists can work with the DNA and RNA from humans, plants, animals, and other organisms while using their knowledge of chemistry, physiology, genetics, physics, and biology in their work. We also have a patent examiner, and they read and analyze patent applications. They examine the written descriptions of inventions and determine whether or not a patent can be granted for various new inventions, many of which are on tomorrow's groundbreaking technological breakthroughs. A paint chemist, and they help develop paints and coating formulations, color palettes for industrial use. We also have a pharmacist, polymer scientist or researcher, a sales or technical support, a toxicologist, and they're scientists that test bodily fluids and tissue samples during autopsies to check if there's presence of any toxins or chemicals, and they work in laboratories and locate toxic levels of drugs or poisons within the body, and several other as well.
Yeah, so that's essentially a good overview of the fields of biology and chemistry and the career possibilities that are available to graduates with degrees in those fields. So now we're super excited to introduce everyone to someone very special who is a woman that has a super interesting career in the field of science. She's the CEO of Indus Space Incorporated, and we're super excited to have her as our science panelist for the webinar. So everyone, please welcome Ms. Bhairavi Shankar.
Hello. I wasn't sure if I need to say anything, but I'll wait for
Yeah, so we just wanted to talk about like kind of what you do in your job. So did you have anything prepared, or could we just ask you the questions that we have?
You can ask me questions.
Oh yeah, okay, for sure. So one question we had was that in the past, what undergraduate program and university did you go to?
Okay, so I went to U of T. So I started in the Mississauga campus, but midway through the 4 years, switched over to, oh yeah, there you go. Switched over to the St. George campus. I mean, I've always enjoyed, I guess a little bit about myself is I am a planetary scientist within the sciences. So for everything that you described, there is pretty much a space equivalent in learning any of these and related jobs. So I think astrobiology is definitely one of them. But for me, I had my early interests in just astronomy. And I used the first 2 years kind of doing programs related to an astronomy degree. But then midway realized, well, I wasn't feeling it a whole lot. And I was like, what else is there? And so that made me discover there was a planetary science program at the St. George campus. So I switched over, and that essentially helped me take a course on geology, which I loved, didn't realize how much I loved it. And so I ended up just graduating with a degree in planetary science. That was the program that existed at the time out of U of T. And yeah, that was how I became the first part to it. But yeah.
That's awesome. That sounded super cool. Another question that we had is, it's a little bit more general. It's like, what are the necessary traits, skills, or characteristics that one should have if they kind of want to go into that sort of profession or field?
I think first thing is curiosity. And it doesn't just apply to the sciences or STEM in general. If you are curious about a particular role, job, or tasks or anything, explore it. And I think this is where that helps. And then also just learning. So learning in any way that is not just within a classroom. So at your age groups, I think it's really very easy to find opportunities to volunteer, right? So I think many of you are doing that as well. So that helps you learn skills in the job, so to speak, and actually help you discover or explore if something that you know you're so passionate about is something that you still want to continue. Because there will be challenges, that goes without saying, but it's like at the end of all of that, are you still intrigued by whatever you're passionate about and things like that? And that can start as early as possible and it continues even to this day. So I hope I answered the question. I don't know, certainly spacing out on the original question, but my apologies.
No, that's really great. That's really great advice. Everyone should like listen to that for sure. And we just had one last question. So what are some challenges that you faced like as a minority? So as a woman of color in that field, what are any obstacles that you had or continue to overcome today, and how did you overcome them?
So something that I'm honest about often when I talk about it is at the time of doing these programs and degrees, I didn't realize I was the only one of my kind, which in some ways speaks to how open and accepting others were around me. But at the same time, I didn't realize that there were still challenges that I was possibly facing, but didn't realize that I was facing, which only after the fact, when I look at like metrics of how many girls go into a STEM program, how many people of color are in STEM programs, especially in a space-related context, it started to hit me being like, why aren't there any more? And I think this is where now in retrospect or moving forward, my goal is, okay, how to make sure those opportunities exist and things. So that has been the general realization and challenges, but I'm hoping that no matter even if I face the challenge, I'm now making it a bit easier for others like me to join, because space is cool, space is awesome, and it has a little bit of all of the STEM field. So I would like to see a bit more representation.
Yeah, for sure. We would too. Thank you so much, Ms. Shankar. Your responses were amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That just reminded me, like, people going, like, we need minorities going into these sorts of fields and people like you going into these fields do so much for future generations who want to enter these fields as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's really nice just seeing like people like minorities, like, such as you, like women of color in these actual leadership positions, because we see a lot of like maybe like, like women and like other sort of minority groups and like undergraduate, at least like universities and programs and that and such like that. But you usually don't see as much as them in like leadership positions. So it's really inspiring to see that you're the CEO of this Into Space Incorporation. So that was really inspiring to see.
Thank you. I think, yeah, it was my realizing that there were gaps in me feeling like this was my solution. So I would just start this. Yeah.
All right, great. So we're going to go into our technology portion. Thank you so much. So with technology being a growing field, in the 21st century, jobs related to technology are now one of the most popular streams and will continue to be the greatest contributor towards the economy as it expands its sectors. And technology, as we know, plays a very important role in our society as it's present almost every single day. And it allows for employees to easily apply for jobs as remote locations don't affect the quality of work being done. So I'm just going to dive right into some of these fields in technology. Obviously, being that the technology field is still growing, there's several other jobs that we may not know exist that may exist in 5 years. So here's some of the most common ones right now. Just go right into that. So some of the careers that exist. So we have a software developer, which is one of the most common ones. There's a lot of undergraduate degrees with software developing as software engineers as being a very big career. They help design, develop, and modify computer programs, specifically softwares for medical, industrial, military, aerospace, business, or general applications for consumer purposes. We have a systems analyst, which solves business problems through IT. IT is known as information technology, for those who don't know, through analysis and design techniques by implementing certain computer software, hardware, or cloud services. We also have a technical specialist who's in charge of organizing how the organization uses technology by monitoring, diagnosing, and solving technical issues regarding computer networks. A web developer, this should be pretty self-explanatory. They create and maintain websites, as well as work on the site's functionality, performance, capacity, and sometimes content for the site as well. Data scientist, which is similar to an analyst, they're in charge of organizing and structuring unorganized data into tangible results that can be later used for the organizations to develop further plans for their business. And this generally requires a bit of a higher degree than an analyst. An information security analyst, which work on protecting the security of an organization by installing software such as firewalls in order to keep the computer network safe and decrease the number of cyber attacks. A computer systems analyst study an organization's current computer system and layout and design solutions to help the systems work more efficiently and effectively. A sales engineer, which is the combination of sales and engineering for lines in the industrial or commercial markets, and they help deliver presentations about certain products and services to interested customers and help them with the installation of equipment as well. We have a computer research scientist, and they research ways to create and improve computer software and hardware, such as improve efficiency, networks, computing speed, and information security. We have a network and systems administrator, and they're responsible for organizing, installing, and supporting an organization's computer systems, specifically including local area networks, a computer support specialist, and they help troubleshoot and evaluate computer network problems, as well as provide advice to computer users and their organizations. We have an IT consultant who work with commercial clients who require advice in solving problems about their business or their organization. A network engineer, which is generally in charge of organizing the entire IT system of an organization, and they construct and manage networks to make sure they're functioning optimally. And as I said, technology being a growing field, there's still some careers that we won't know about today that might exist in 5 or 10 years. So there's still many more that are expanding. So now that we've gone into the careers in technology, we'd like to introduce our speaker, Ms. Rasika Nimkar. She's currently working as a customer success manager at Procurify, and before that working as an electrolyte simulation software company for 7 years. If you don't mind, could you do a small introduction of yourself?
Of course. Thanks so much, Novera. So my name is Rasika, as Novera said, and my background is chemical engineering. I've studied for my master's degree in chemical engineering and started working for a company that made electrolyte simulation software for people like me, like chemical engineers, scientists, chemists. And slowly I just made the transition into more of this tech side of things and business side of things, and started working as a customer success manager.
That's awesome. So we're going to just dive right into the questions. So what specifically is your job or profession, and what do you actually do during your job, and what kind of contribution are you making to society through your profession?
Sure, absolutely. So my day-to-day job, what that looks like is it's a lot of the title itself says it's customer success. So it's client facing. I get a portfolio of accounts assigned to me, and what those accounts are of clients that are using the software that I'm representing. In this case, I am representing a software called Procurify, right? Procurify, what that does, it helps make request to receive workflow easier for any supply chain in different organizations. So it's spend management type of a software. And the best part about the job is that I come from a background of chemical engineering, right? So all the skills are very transferable. That's what I really like. The main thing or main skill you need is empathy, being able to put yourself in the client's shoes, understanding, okay, they're using this is their problem. How do I solve it? And then also a lot of inter-team communications. You sometimes cannot solve the problem yourself, but you need some technical expert. How to bring them in, when to bring them in, and evaluating if there is an actual risk of the client not using the software anymore. Are we going to lose this? So there's that business side of things as well. So it's a combination of all those different type of profiles, which I really enjoy. And yeah, I hope that answered your question, Novera.
Yeah, definitely. You actually got into our second question as well a bit, which is what do you love about your job the most, and one thing that you don't like or wish you could change about your job?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one, isn't it? So what I love about my job, honestly, like literally the customer success part of it. Like when I do something and that's the customer comes back and says, hey, like we love it, like so awesome that we have you as someone who is going to champion for us. I'm their trusted advisor. I'm their voice within the organization. I bring their problems back. I'm like, look, the product just doesn't match it. Like we need to do something for these customers, or escalate it to the level where, oh, this needs to be resolved, like this is not acceptable, and then bring it back to them, and then something gets done and they love that satisfaction. That's my favorite part, honestly. And what I don't like is sometimes I don't like documentation. Sometimes I don't like administrative work. Like, oh my God, like, do I have to like go through all these steps to get stuff done? I want stuff done faster. And to that end, though, I do try to create processes. Like in one of my introductions, what I always like to say is I like to create sustainable processes that are scalable. Organizations keep growing, especially tech organizations grow at such fast speeds that it's amazing. Like one day you're at 5 people, next day you're at 50, right? So you need to have solid processes. And for all of you too, in any career you go to, if you can find a way to create some processes that can be scaled up, you will bring a lot of value to the organization and to your career.
That's great advice to everyone here, as well, especially for me as well too. So we have one last question, and that's just a final to wrap it up. What's any advice you'd like to give to high school or university students? A lot of the students here are in high school right now or about to go into university. And what would you give them who are planning to go into a similar profession or field? I know that you mentioned that you were a chemical engineer, but then you switched to the field of technology. So what's your advice on like people who want to go into either a similar profession or those who aren't sure about what they want to go into, but want to think about, switching in the future to technology?
Right. Okay, there are different answers here, but what I would start with is what I did. So when I was working as a technical support engineer for the electrolyte simulation software company, I realized my title was going to change, but I didn't know what customer success meant. Like I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. What I did is I went on to LinkedIn, looked at people who had those titles, looked at their career journeys, looked at their profiles, stalked them almost. There were some that I really found interesting, so I just messaged them. People are very open, like most people are open for mentoring. Someone who's wanting to come to that field is what I found. At least I've always had great experiences. I'm very glad and blessed about that. So I messaged them and okay, so what did you do? Can we talk, set up some coffee chats? And then that's how I started slowly just building up to it. Like what courses do I need to take? Like, do I need to earn this skill? What do I need to add to my career portfolio to actually get into that career? Like that's my dream title, right? For example, then how do I get there? This is my next 5 years track that I'm thinking of. Of course, things change, your interests change. You do something, you're like, oh, I don't like this that much. You can obviously go and change that too. But yeah, starting to work towards that is very, very important. So to summarize, the advice would be curious constantly, question everything. Okay, you're supposed to do this. Yes, but why? Where am I going to? And think to yourself, where is this going to lead me? Like, is that my end goal? Then revise it accordingly and just like keep working towards that by talking to people. That helps a lot. Like just asking and seeking advice. People will be open for that. I bet you.
That's amazing advice that you mentioned, especially I know that regarding the LinkedIn as well, because some people are usually a bit, iffy about using LinkedIn to reach out to others, like, what will they think of me? And as high school students, throughout the 4 years, they're constantly thinking about what do I want to do? And your parents are always at the back of your head, like, well, what do you want to go into? I don't know what I want to go into. So it's great that you mentioned, yeah, be curious and, like, I loved all the advice that you mentioned, and it's definitely going to come helpful to me, and I'm sure as the others as well. So thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. And honestly, that I did that. So I did all of this, 15 years ago. LinkedIn, we didn't really have like that, so many years ago, not that much social media or like even internet. I grew up in India. We had internet, don't get me wrong. But what my parents did is I was thinking between chemical engineering or biotechnology. And I actually tried to find chemical engineers and scientists to talk to. And I was like, okay, what do I go into? And then I decided chemical engineering because it was a broader field, which apparently was true, that I could go into anything after chemical engineering. If I had gone into biotechnology or trying, like I wanted to be a genetic engineer, right? Then that would have been a narrower field. It would have been amazing, but then different pathway. It would have led me to a different path altogether. So that was my way of LinkedIn at that time. That's the only available option to have those one-on-ones. But now with someone was, I think Bhairavi was saying this, with the remote culture too, it's very important to use those skills, all those resources available to your generation. It's amazing. And I'm so inspired by you all. Honestly, I want to hear all of you talk about what you do. So I'll stop now, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go into engineering.
Okay, so many people say that engineers are kind of like the artists of science. Engineering is all about creating and designing, and there are a wide variety of jobs available for students with engineering degrees, each varying depending on the type of engineering you choose to pursue. Did you know that there are about 200 types of engineering? We can't go over all of them, but here are some of the main ones. So, aerospace engineering. Such engineers are responsible for the research, design, and production of aircraft, spacecraft, aerospace equipment, missiles, and satellites. You could become an agricultural engineer. These are essentially engineers that look for solutions to problems involving the use of plants, animals, and the natural environment. You could become an automotive engineer, a biological and biosystems engineer, a biomedical engineer, which are essentially biomechanical and biomedical engineers combine the two disciplines of mechanical engineering with human anatomy and physiology, which this type of engineering usually involves designing processes and refining equipment for athletes in high performance sports. You could become a building engineer, a chemical engineer, a civil engineer. So civil engineering is actually one of the oldest types of engineering, and it involves the design, construction, and management of municipal infrastructure, railways, highways, transit systems, airports, harbors, bridges, tunnels, and buildings. And civil engineers also ensure the availability of high-quality water supply and sewage treatment facilities. You could become a communications engineer, a computer engineer, which are engineers that specialize in electronic systems and deal with the design, analysis, and manufacturing of the electronic systems and devices, a construction engineer, an electrical engineer. So these engineers are involved in the generation, production, transmission, distribution, and application of electrical energy. They also make critical contributions to telecommunications, television, and computer technology. You would become an electronic systems engineer, an environmental engineer, even a food engineer. So these engineers design and develop systems for the production, processing, distribution, and storing food and agricultural materials. A geological engineer, a software engineer, and many, many others. Like I said, there's 200 types, so we can't go over all of them, but those are the major ones. So now to move on with our third panelist. Today we have with us Ms. Sushmita Tirumalayevasan, I hope I said that properly, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Alberta studying chemical engineering. So she has a lot of experience with data analysis and biochemical process optimization. She's also participated in projects with nonprofit organizations, healthcare, and startups. Student advocacy is incredibly important as well, and she makes sure that females of colors are well represented. So Ms. Tirumalayevasan, if you could please introduce yourself, that'd be awesome.
Sure, thanks, Anna. And yeah, you got it almost right. Anna, I know that I have ridiculously long last name, but it is what it is. So I'm Sushmita. You can call me Sush. As Anna mentioned, I'm currently doing my PhD in chemical engineering at the University of Alberta. And I'm currently working on remediation of oil sand processed water. So basically trying to find a sustainable way to remediate polluted water that is the result of extracting fuel from underground. So I've been working on this for 5 years, and I majorly work on data analytics and modeling and simulation. That's my day-to-day life. And I'm an international student. I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering from India. I came to Canada in 2016, and ever since I've been working on my PhD. I'm really close to graduating, and I'm 26 years old. And if I graduate this year, I'll have a PhD when I'm 26, and that would be incredible. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm really excited to be here and talk to you all about my experience and why it's important for women to join STEM.
That's amazing. That's so impressive. I can't believe you'll be done by the time we're 26. That's really amazing news. What you basically answered our first question, which is what's your job or profession? So we're going to move on to the second one. So it's what are some challenges that you faced as a minority, as a woman of color, perhaps in that field? And what are any obstacles that you've had to or are continuing to having to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good question. As I mentioned, I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering as well back in India. Things were a little bit different back in India because like 7 years back, I did my first internship in one of the biggest pharmaceutical company in India, and my experience wasn't great. I didn't find many women around me, and the interns didn't have separate washrooms, and it was really bad experience. And I started wondering what's happening, why is this happening, and how can we like make this place better, because my class had a strength of 120 students, and we had fairly almost half women in class. But we realized that when women enter the workforce, like not as many as enter, like not entire 50% is going to enter the workforce. Less than 1% decided to go on and do advanced degrees, and I was less than 1% of them when I decided to do my master's. I came in 2016 to do my master's, and after a year I switched to PhD. There were a lot of challenges that I faced. I didn't have the privilege of having a female mentor growing up, because I had a lot of questions like, okay, I'm doing my chemical engineering now in undergraduate. What do I do next? Should I do a master? Should I do a PhD? Should I get a job? And I didn't have many people to talk to. Most of the professors were male. I didn't have female mentors to talk to. And that's one of the reasons why I am a strong advocate for women in STEM. I make sure that I give advice to people, which I didn't get when I was young. One thing that kept motivating me was I was really passionate about solving problems and solving global challenges. And that's the only reason why I chose chemical engineering. And when I was in my high school, I read an article that said, chemical engineers are universal engineers, and that really catched my eye, and I started reading more about it. And I Googled it, and like as Rasika mentioned, like chemical engineers have wide range of diverse opportunities once they graduate. And that really inspired me, and it kept me going, because I always wanted to work on big problems and global challenges. And that's the reason which got me into research. After my undergraduate, I wanted to work on impactful problem. For example, like remediating oil sands is Canada's one of the biggest environmental problems right now. And they've been trying to solve this for the past 2 decades, and they've still not even close to getting to solve it. So it's going to take 2 more decades to get there, right? And we need more passionate people like us who are invested in solving problems and making this world a better place. And I would say that my passion kept me going irrespective of all the challenges that I faced. When I came here, it was really difficult for me because I had a completely different education system. I was used to a different technology and industry and everything. But still, I didn't give up. And I just kept going, and I reached out to as many people as I could. Like everyone mentioned, like networking is one of the important thing. Like, don't underestimate the power of networking. And that helped me to get into a program, a PhD program with fully funded scholarship. And I didn't know I could, but I was able to get there. If I could do it, you could do it. So it's just that you have to be really passionate, and you have to you shouldn't stop until you reach what you want in life. So yeah, like that's how I mitigated like a few problems that I faced during my journey until I reached here.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing, that having like that sort of persistence, it's really inspiring to see. And you also essentially answered our third question as well, which is any advice. The networking advice, I think that's a very important piece, because I find that we like sometimes as high school students, or like as women even, we just feel hesitant to reach out, but it's extremely important, especially in the field of STEM. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to add on something that in terms of networking, not just networking, but it's just that don't stop like staying in your comfort zone. Come out of your comfort zone and take as much risk as you can, because I was always told not to take any risk in my childhood or in my younger age. They said, be normal. Why do you want to try something new? Like, just be normal and don't try new things. But that is absolutely not true. Try new things, try as many new things as you can, talk to new people. If something's making you uncomfortable, it's probably going to make you grow. So try it out. Either way, what's the worst thing that could happen? Send that email, apply for that internship. The worst thing that could happen is you won't get it. That's all. But I was always scared of getting a rejection, getting a no. But I think it's part of the process, and it's important that we embrace it, and it shouldn't stop us in any way. So yeah, I hope my experience inspires you a little bit. And I want to see many of you entering STEM, staying in STEM, and advocating for women in STEM. Yeah, like we should support each other and make sure that, we are supporting women in STEM and encouraging more women to enter STEM as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we moving into the next portion?
Yep, into mathematics. Yep.
All right. We're going to go into the careers in math. I am a bit biased because I love math, so don't mind me. So mathematics is one of the most diverse fields to get a degree in, as it opens up a wide variety of jobs that one can enter. Mathematics, statisticians, and actuaries are employed by universities, government, bank and trust companies, insurance companies, pension benefit accounts, consulting firms, or science and engineering firms. In the last 10 years, more and more mathematicians have been actually employed by computer software companies. However, generally, mathematics opens up many opportunities to explore, and some of the few that we'll mention right now. So you can become a teacher, pretty self-explanatory at high school. Mathematics teacher, they're quite helpful. An actuary, which is actually quite popular, and they're business professionals who analyze costs of risks and uncertainties of certain financial decisions through the use of mathematics, statistics, and financial theory. You can become a cryptographer. If you like ciphers, you can create ciphers to secure data and develop new solutions for the security of systems through algorithms to encrypt sensitive data. A market researcher or a market analyst, they help gather and analyze data on their consumers and competitors. They also study market conditions to help businesses determine potential sales of a certain product or a service that they want to release, to help understand how it will be sold in the market. A financial advisor is also a very popular option, and you can choose to work independently or through a larger firm, and they basically help clients create decisions regarding money, personal finances, and investment. A meteorologist, they help study weather conditions using data collected from remote sensors, satellite imaging, and weather sensors in order to accurately predict the forecast. An auditor, and they help analyze and verify certain financial records and tax files of an organization or company. A mathematician, which sounds like a common option, but it's actually not. Mathematicians often work in research or academia, and you can get involved in the research of abstract or pure mathematics to try and solve complicated questions and figure out numerical relationships between pieces of information. And this usually requires a higher level of mathematics degree, like a PhD. A data or a research analyst, a computer programmer, and they help translate the designs created by software developers in order to write, test, debug, and maintain the detailed instructions of the computer programs. And medical scientists, which doesn't sound like a common option since it's mathematics, and why would biology be involved in this? But actually, medical scientists work on conducting studies to investigate human diseases and possible prevention methods to improve human health. A financial analyst, and they assist in guiding businesses, organizations, and individuals on how they can gain profit by assessing investment types. A neuropsychologist, this one was pretty surprising to me because apparently they use mathematical models in order to understand the function of the brain and learning emotions and other aspects of human characteristics. So that was really cool. A statistician, and they apply statistical models to real world problems and interpret data to help businesses make decisions. An economist, and they prepare reports, tables, and charts on the distribution of goods and services, analyze data, research trends, and evaluate economic issues. A data scientist, a professor, instructor, and an accountant. And an accountant presents the company's financial records and tax returns, as well as presenting business plans, commentaries, financial statements, and reports on budget. So now we're going to go into physics, which was included into our math portion.
Yep, so with a bachelor or science degree in physics or engineering physics, students can pursue careers in research and development, science, engineering, education, even medicine, law, business, and the military. So STEM is very interconnected with not even just the STEM fields themselves, but also a multitude of other fields as well. So current students can take advantage of the many research and internship opportunities available to help them prepare for the career of their choice. So here are some of the possible physics career options. So you could be an accelerator operator. These guys essentially supervise or work in complicated particle accelerator devices, as well as record and analyze experimental data after setting the experiments. An applications engineer is someone that creates, designs, and helps test several software applications while focusing on improving the client experience. You can become a data analyst, and these people essentially collect, process, and carry out statistical analysis with data analysis tools in order to answer a bigger question or help employers and clients create important decisions through trends and facts. You could become a design engineer. So they essentially work to develop ideas for new products and the systems that design them. This is done through computer-aided design, which is also known as CAD, to create the prototypes. You could become a high school physics teacher, which is a teacher that teaches grade 11 and 12 on following the Ontario curriculum and material for physics. You'd become a lab technician, which these guys essentially analyze and make repairs to laboratory apparatus and equipment, as well as analyze their functionality. A laser engineer, which is an electrical engineer who specializes in developing lasers through advanced optics. They need to monitor laser systems, optimize laser output, operate and maintain the performance of the laser. You could become an optical engineer. So these guys design and build devices for industrial purposes using knowledge of optics and light transmission, such as microscopes, lenses, telescopes, and other optical devices. A research associate is someone that essentially organizes and analyzes material, gathers primary and secondary sources, and drafts outlines for supervisors. They require an advanced degree, which is generally a PhD, and you could become a professor.
So last but not least, we'll be having our panelist, Ms. Vanessa Vicaria, speak about her experience with mathematics. Did you know she's the founder of the Math Guru and helps make math stress-free and fun for students? She's also the founding member of an indie rock band, Goodnight Sunrise. So how cool is that? So Ms. Vicaria, do you mind doing an introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. You can just call me Vanessa. I'm the founder of the Math Guru, and that is a tutoring studio in Toronto. And yes, our goal in life is to make math cool because it obviously is, like the world just doesn't know it yet. My very quick thing you should know about me is I actually failed grade 11 math twice because I really just wanted to be in a rock band and like marry Keanu Reeves, which I still do. And I was always told that I wasn't a math person. And it wasn't until I had this amazing teacher in grade 12 that I got a 98 in math. It totally changed my life. And I realized that, wow, like math really gets a bad rep. And so does the idea of what it means to be a math person. So my goal in life is really to change that any way I can. I have a podcast and I have a book and I have a tutoring center. And like, I'm waiting for Netflix to call me about being on a math reality show. I don't know about you guys, but we obviously need that. And yeah, my goal is to change math culture so that we don't have to be having these conversations because, duh, obviously women would want to do math. That's my intro. Thanks for having me.
No, like we're excited to have you. Yeah, like you mentioned, math is like considered to be something forbidden and just ugly, but you know, how can we make that more accessible for people, especially for women who are told like you're not a math, there's no such thing as you're not, you know, a math person. You can be whatever person you want to be. So we're just going to go into the questions. So the first question is, in the past, what undergraduate program or university college did you go to?
Yeah. So, okay. So basically, I like really slacked when I was in high school, as is quite apparent by my introduction. So when I discovered I was good at math, I was also like really not focused on university. And by the time university applications came around, I'd already missed the deadline. And the only program I could get into was a marketing management program at the University of Guelph. So I did a BCom in marketing management, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I got super into entrepreneurship, into marketing, into advertising. I became obsessed with it. And all of sorts of things happened along the way. But I ended up afterwards doing my teaching degree in math education. And then I went and did my master's of math education at UBC, where I actually studied the effects of marketing on women and mathematics. So what messages we get from like movies, for example, like why have we never seen a teen movie where the cheerleader is good at math? Why is it always the nerd that needs a makeover to get the guy? Like, so it was actually a really cool intersection. So I have, yeah, undergrad BCom, a teaching degree, master's of math education, and I also have a graphic design degree from Humber because I did that as well because I wanted to be able to like make all my own stuff.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Like going into BCom and then becoming someone involved in mathematics, and then especially what you mentioned, women mathematics and marketing, and especially in TV shows and reality shows, you know, they never really show that one character who might be pretty being good at math. Like, why is math such a nerdy thing, you know?
Totally. All those TikToks. Have you guys seen the new TikTok trend of being like, you're either pretty or you're good at math? And then it's girls being like, guess which one I am? And people are like, you're ugly, so you must be good at math. Like, it's like so messed up. And it's like, that's what's going viral right now. It's 2021, folks.
The stereotype is still going. It's been like on for a while.
It's been on for too long. Let's move on, folks.
Definitely. So you mentioned being parts of a lot of things, like you're the founder and director, you have a podcast, book. You're even in an indie rock band. That's a lot to manage. So what's one thing you love about your job or your jobs the most, and one thing that you don't like or you wish you could change about them?
Sure. So the thing I like, there's a lot of things I like, but what I really like is being the owner of this business myself. Like, so the owner of the Math Guru, I get to do whatever I want. Like, there are a lot of people along the way that told me it was a bad idea to, for example, like open a tutoring center where the walls are pink. Like, they were like, no one's going to go for that. But I'm able to just be like, you know what? I want pink walls. I'm going to do pink walls. I made like a scented candle that smells like peace, love, and pie, and we sell it as merch. Like, I like being able to be like, this is what I want to do, and I get to do it. So I love that. I also love like hanging out with teenagers every day because it's basically like a party here, and there's just constantly people coming in and out, and I get to meet so many people and hear their stories. So I love that. I love decorating calculators. I love being able to do what I want. Honestly, like I think that's the thing is like this whole thing about making math cool. Like I like being able to do it in my own way. And if it doesn't work, like I don't really have to answer to anyone. So I love that. The stuff I don't like to do, I can't remember who said it before. It might have been Sush. I can't remember, but I feel like we all feel this way. Definitely like the admin stuff. Like I'm just like, ugh. Who goes into accounting? Good for you. I don't want to do it. No offense. That really is a career in STEM. If you want to go into accounting, you go. Anyways, but like that kind of stuff, like bookkeeping or just, you know, dealing with annoying clients, that kind of stuff I don't love. but it totally is worth the fact that most of the time I don't have to do that stuff.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned, like the fact that you want pink walls. So what? I find tutoring centers really boring. So why not just
Right?
put a bit of pizzazz in it?
Oh my
Why
God,
do
you
you
need
have
to
to make
come
it so
visit.
boring?
I don't know, but you guys, I want to give you a tour. Should I give you like a quick tour while we're here?
Sure.
Is that
Sure.
weird? Like, let's like just
I
like,
love
let me
that.
just, because we just gave it a glow up. I'm just going to show you one room because we're sitting here. Okay. Just like look at these. Okay. This is the center. Like, look at these couches. Isn't that
Oh my
nice?
God, they're so nice.
And like, look at this wall we painted. I don't know what you can see. And this is like all our merch. Okay. I'm going to stop. But anyways, my point is it doesn't have to be boring. You can do whatever you want. And that's definitely what I like. I'm
Yeah,
back.
I love that. That was amazing. Thank you. Also, one last question we have for you is what are some challenges you face as a minority, as a woman in your field, and what are some obstacles you had or you continue to overcome, and how did you do so?
So for sure, this is funny that we're here because Doina knows firsthand that often as a woman in STEM, like I don't get taken seriously. I'd also like to point out that um, I think a lot of times when we talk about diversity, we're very focused on we're talking about gender or we're talking about like ethnicity. But I'd like to also add into the mix that there are other ways in which we stereotype so much. So, for example, like I'll just use my voice. Like I sound like a 16-year-old. I totally get it. And I, as a result, never get taken seriously just simply because of the way I talk and dress. So I do a lot of speaking about this kind of stuff in STEM. And me and Joanna were talking about when I presented at one of her conferences afterwards, one of the pieces of feedback she got from like some guy was like, I can't take someone seriously who wears sequins and has purple hair. Like I just like can't, which is so ridiculous because it has nothing to do with the content of what I'm saying. So I think that, I come up against that a lot, like definitely being written off before I have a chance to say my piece. But at the same time, I really believe that all of these things ultimately are assets to us. So I think that even like I mentioned that I'm in a band, not just to show off and get you guys to think I'm cool, to be honest, but because I think it's super important to break the stereotype that you're either creative or you're good at math. We say that all the time, like, oh, you're right brain or you're left brain, like you're either into the arts or you're into math. And it's very important for me to say no. A diverse society means that you can wear and like whatever you want. And, it's a giant Venn diagram. You can have all these interests. You can wear sequins and you can be good at math. You can have a really high pitched voice and be good at math, whatever those things are. So for sure, I've come up against a lot of superficial obstacles, but at the end of the day, it is your greatest asset because you're so much more unique when you really bring all of those parts of yourself to the forefront and refuse to hide any of them. And even like, I know this isn't about music, but what's so interesting is I'm in a rock band and there are like no women, especially women of color in rock music. Like it's just kind of unheard of. And it's something that's really hard for me. I struggle so much in that industry. And like, it's really tough. But I do believe that at the end of the day, things will slowly change. And I'll hopefully be one of the people pioneering that change because I refuse to give up. And I know some of the other speakers have echoed that like those obstacles at the end not only make you stronger, but they pave the way for us to start seeing those movies where the cheerleader's also good at math. And things slowly change. But I think by not letting those things get you down and by owning them as opposed to hiding them, like you are the change you wish to see, not to be cheesy, but like that's what the catalyst for change is. Anyway, sorry, that was like the longest answer to your question.
No, that was great. That was great. I love that you mentioned all the parts. And yeah, people like you and all the other panelists we've had today, you guys entering STEM is the reason why future generations can also enter STEM fields, as all the girls here today know as well. Thank you so much for your answer. That was great. And we loved having this mini tour of your tutoring area.
You guys are welcome to come anytime. If you're in Toronto, come on by.
Absolutely. We'll keep that in mind. Okay. So that's it for our, oh, sorry. That's it for our portion with the panelists. Can we all just
I was,
say thank you or just virtually have a round of applause for all our panelists today?
Can I also ask, is it okay if the girls, if they have any questions to ask the panelists, maybe we can take extra 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, that's
questions, if
what
you
I
guys
was about
want
to
to?
go into just now.
Yeah, oh, okay, thank you.
If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to ask the panelists now. And we'll just, I guess you can unmute or you can write it in the chat and we'll let them know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a question.
for sure. Go ahead.
I was wondering if anyone that was here today had like any role models or something that inspired them to keep them going, like during their time of university or something.
Yeah, for sure. Each of the panelists can go. Like if any of you have like an answer, you guys can go ahead.
I'm happy to quickly start since I was just talking. My number one role model, honestly, is Britney Spears, and I'll tell you why. I honestly think that Britney was given such a crazy hard time and was doubted from the very beginning of her career, was basically always given a bad rep. And I have this thing called the Britney method that I always employ anytime the going gets tough or I have imposter syndrome. And the Britney method really is the classic fake it till you make it, but with like a spin. Like I really just feel like with Britney, I can't remember who else here. All the speakers were so great. They blend together, but someone was talking about that rejection. Like I feel like my goal every day is to get rejected, because if you get rejected, it means you're trying for something. You know, you're like really reaching for something that is up there. And I feel like with Britney, her whole life was about being doubted. And she would get on stage and she'd be like, I won't say the word, but she'd be like, it's Britney B. And she would just like do her thing. And by the end of it, you were like, we all idolize Britney for who she is, for saying, I don't care if you don't like my voice. I don't care if you think that this is like too progressive for the times. I don't care if you think that Christine is better than me. She did her thing every day without fail, and she never caved to anyone, and she never changed who she was. So that's my answer.
Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this and then I have to leave, unfortunately, but the question was very interesting. So just stepping in. So my role model is actually my mom, to be honest. She is a powerhouse. Like, that woman doesn't take no for an answer. When it was time to come for me for my master's degree to the US, my parents both were completely supportive of me doing a higher degree, higher education, but I was from a middle class family. We didn't really have that money to sponsor my entire master's degree, right? So my dad's a PhD himself in chemistry. And he's like, no, like, my dad didn't pay for my PhD or master's. I wouldn't for yours either. Apply for a PhD and find a job. And I'm like, okay. I applied for 12 universities, all for PhD, only one for master's. And I got that one single master's accept. All PhDs were a reject. And my mom, she's like, no, we are going to send Rasika to the US no matter what. She worked for a bank for 35 years and she managed all the finances, and she was just incredible. Like, hats off to that. Without her, I could not have come here. And despite not understanding the field of science necessarily, she sat with me. She helped me choose the schools. So we all have, parents who really care for us. They want us to succeed. So I just wanted to say that we can learn from their perseverance, especially if your parents are like first generation immigrants, like you are kids of immigrants. Totally. They have done this to give the kids a better life. I have a daughter who's 1 year old right now, and all of you are like such an inspiration for me. I'm like, okay, hopefully Ria will be there one day, So yes, like, I hope to be that mom for Ria that my mom was for me. And I think if we want to look for inspirations, even close to home are really good places to find inspiration too. I hope that. Sorry, Ravi, for jumping in, but I really
that was one part of my answer. So thanks for mentioning that as well. So yeah, for me, my mom was quite instrumental. In fact, back in the late 90s, so dating myself, when we didn't have internet even as easily to search through, she would sit with me and look through phone books and really help me find the astronomy organization that I ended up volunteering in. And that really spurred my interest and, later career in all of this. So without her perseverance, determination, I think it was, I wouldn't be here. So definitely family support, very instrumental. And for me, it was also my master's advisor. So when I did my master's at university in the States, it was a female advisor. And so first time I could really appreciate what it meant to do research. And in fact, through that 2 years of an experience, really motivated me enough to say, I want to do a PhD, which at the end of undergrad, I was like, why would I want to do a PhD? So she really helped build in the sort of support that comes not just from mentoring, but also just giving a perspective. And I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And so I think that really motivated me to continue on, which role models can come in at any moment in your life, but you will always learn something from them. So I think this is my two that also I really appreciate.
Thank you so much for all of your answers. That was awesome. That was very heartfelt. Does anyone have any other questions? You guys can just say it out loud or in the chat, whichever you're comfortable with.
I have a question actually for Vanessa. So Amber, first of all, thank you so much for coming, and I love your story. And in the beginning you were saying that you failed grade 11, and I remember, I know with grade 11 things get hard because there's university level courses and college courses and stuff like that. So I found the units in math really hard. So I wanted to know, if you remember, what were the units that you found most difficult in math? What type of math do you dislike the most? Is it trigonometry or algebra?
I love this question. What do you dislike the most? Okay, honestly, truthfully, the math I dislike the most is shapes. 3D shapes. I'm I don't like you, even though I really understand they exist in the world around us. I just don't like spatial math. And it's funny because I just wrote 2 kids' math books, and it was so I was I don't understand how nets work. I couldn't visualize it. That being said, the math I lost my mind was at quadratics, but quadratics are my favorite now. So that was where I really started losing it in high school, just because you can kind of fake it. You can kind of pull the Brittany method until you get to quadratics, and then you actually have to study, and the Brittany method does not work for you anymore, let me tell you. But more important to that question, I think, is actually figuring out what to do when you're failing math or if you're doing poorly at something. So I don't want to make it seem like it's as easy as, oh, you go to a new school and you have this magical new teacher and everything's fine. Because truthfully, that does not happen to most of us. And we have to figure out what to do when we're struggling. So some quick things I would say is, if you're struggling with a unit in math or science, the most important thing is to know that you've struggled with other things in your life and you have overcome those things. So you've got to dig deep and figure out what it's going to be for you. Is it going to be that you have to practice more? Is it that you have to ask a friend for help? Is it that you have to do extra homework? Is it that you need to find a whole new way of studying for the topic because your current study method isn't working? Is it that you have to go online to Khan Academy? Is it that you need a tutor? Just remember, you have not tried everything yet. Even if it feels like I've tried everything, you haven't. There's something you haven't tried, and you've got to figure out what that thing is.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I totally agree with what you're saying. Keep on trying and take risks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and try new things. Try something new. Don't just keep doing the same thing that's not working. Talk to friends, talk to parents. Be what else could I do that I'm not thinking of? Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Definitely sorry.
I was just gonna say that Khan Academy has been a real savior for me personally too, because I'm still going to high school. I have to go to grade 11 next year, and I've just been watching Khan Academy videos. That's how I've sort of tried to get through the pandemic and the messed up semester schedule and everything.
I agree. Khan Academy, not only that, but there's you can almost get an entire degree's worth of education on YouTube, and I didn't know that until this summer. And they have full-on calculus review courses that go on for 12 hours straight. Honestly, I'm not saying that you should watch that in an entire day, but I am saying that there's tons of resources for you on YouTube, Khan Academy, and tons of people who love making content for math. What I also wanted to say is definitely don't spend like 5 hours on one question. Go take a break, because it's the 10-minute, 5-minute breaks between math that definitely help you rejuvenate and, think about it at the back of your brain, and then, come up with that solution like, hey, maybe I should try this. So that's just something on my end.
Does anyone have any other questions? Let me just check in the chat.
No, there's no more questions. I think we're good.
Yeah, there's no more.
Everybody was amazing. Thank you so much, the speakers, for being here today with us. Thank